Hello, and welcome everyone to another episode of the Cultured Nerd Podcast. This week, we're doing episode 54. Honestly, it's going to be one of the last 3 episodes of the year until we take our little break. So, as we wrap season 2 to a close, we're going to talk about the Superman Legacy casting updates that came about the last few days, the new updates for what constitutes as a cameo in James Gunn's eyes, and what is and isn't going to be included in the film. And then we're also going to talk about what happened recently with Zachary Levi and his, I don't know any way to put it other than his shade at James Gunn and everyone in between because of certain things he does not. We're going to talk about all of that, and let's just get right into it. And here we are. Did I lose you?
No, just on the mend. Just not as fast as I used to be in my youth. Still got a little COVID pumping through my veins.
Yeah, you got sick over the last week, and you were going to be with us on that podcast where we interviewed Jordan from Power Rangers Unworthy, but you got the vid.
The first time since the inception of the vid. I never got it before then. It was my first time getting it. I laid in bed and watched a ton of anime on Netflix. I highly recommend.
I believe it.
I highly recommend Pluto. It was great. The Onimusha anime was fine. It's nothing. They should just make another Onimusha game instead of just making animes on it. And then I watched The Devil's Plan and watched them all stab each other in the back with their brains.
I don't know what that one is, but I'll take your word for it. I actually finally took your advice and started watching Jujutsu Kaisen, and I'm on episode 12. I just kind of binged right into it for a few days. I do 100% understand what you meant by it feels a lot like Yu Yu Hakusho, because it does. And I actually think they referenced Yu Yu Hakusho a couple of times. When he first gets into the school, he makes a reference saying, "When are you guys going to teach me how to use a spirit gun?" And I was like, there it is. They're self-aware. I like this.
Yeah, it's a little bit of Yu Yu Hakusho. It's a little bit of Demon Slayer. It's its own thing, but you can feel all of the other things that have influenced it.
Yeah, it's such a funny show, but I actually really do like it. I am now patiently waiting for the English version of the finale for Attack on Titan, because I powered through it all, I watched it all, and then the final episode, special number 2, was only in Japanese. So I was like, this is kind of jarring, but I'm going to watch it again in a few weeks when it drops, because apparently it's dropping on January 7th. So that Sunday at like 5 p.m. or something, it's going to be there, and I'm going to watch the crap out of it in English and cry again. It was so good.
There's lots of stuff to cry about in it, so whichever part you want to cry at, that's the right time.
Yeah, but I keep saying Attack on Titan is essentially the most popular Gundam show ever made, because it's a Gundam show. It's about the terrors of war, how bad war is, and the main characters essentially are normal humans who pilot these giant monstrosities, which is a Gundam show.
Now, do you think there's any possibility of, because Gundam is referenced in so many other things, do you think we'll have a full circle where we will have a Gundam be an organic being? I mean, I guess that's Eva, but is there any chance that we'll have a Gundam and it's just guts inside and they go inside and they're like a gut boy?
I don't think so. Exists, Evangelion exists, and the Gundam franchise has been pretty notorious for the fact that this is the non-supernatural, I mean, except for the new type psychic stuff. This is the science-based weapons. It's like the advancement of natural war. So they wouldn't go into the to that realm. It would go more into the now we have a super machine. I could see them do something like a liquid metal kind of a thing at some point, but nothing beyond. No organics, I don't think.
I mean, I guess Iron-Blooded Orphan is kind of in between, right? Like he only would eventually he would only work when he was in the machine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and on that same note, in Gundam Thunderbolt, they had a similar idea where that took place during the 1 Year War, and during Thunderbolt, you had members of Zeon who were literally arms and legs and jacking their prosthetic limbs into the suit to control it faster. So you're getting close to some of these. They're still sticking it firmly in the world of Gundam.
Well, you texted me yesterday and were like, are we going to record today? And I was like, if you could give me another 24 hours. And then the news then hit the air. So I apologize for being 24 hours late. But it seems that the rest of Superman, or James Gunn Superman, has finally come together.
It's getting there. It is. They officially announced that Nicholas Hoult is playing Lex Luthor. With the announcement, he flat out said that yes, the news came a few weeks ago. He didn't comment on it because it wasn't final now. And as of this past weekend, allegedly it was finalized. They took that photo together, and now Nicholas Hoult is going to be shaving his head soon as they get gearing up toward filming in the next 6 weeks, which is really exciting.
He's got a great bald head.
We've seen it before. I mean, he's been bald in that one photo I use for his like modeling. He was bald, but he was also bald the entirety of Mad Max Fury Road. For people who don't remember that he's in that, he's definitely in that. He screamed "Witness me" a lot, which was fun. And that silver spray paint,
the chrome.
Yeah, the crowd, shiny and all that stuff. Yeah, they were. That was a fun movie. That's a movie that gets you pumped up while you're driving in a car.
I hope that the new one. That the new one takes a lot. I mean, I hope they just do another version of the last movie. You know what I mean? Big stunts in the desert, real life action scenes.
Yeah, maybe. I like the idea that this movie is going to, I don't know, subvert some expectations. It's going to be a Superman movie first and foremost. So, change is that. So with Man of Steel, you spent half of the movie where he was learning how to become Superman, which is great for an origin film, but James Gunn's not wanting to do that. It sounds very much like Superman's going to be in the first 10 minutes of the movie, like in costume, flying around saving people. So it's going to be a Superman movie as Superman right off the bat. And yes, I see some of the comments. Your mic and camera keep cutting out. Yes, there are some issues going on with my hardware. I don't know what it is. I'm going to have to fix it on my end shortly after this. For some reason, my computer just doesn't like it when we go live. So it has nothing to do with my internet. It's the computer that's having some hardware issues.
Rough.
So
okie dokie.
Yeah. But with all of that, another out, and that was Sean Gunn, James Gunn's younger brother, also known as Weasel from the Suicide Squad and a bunch of other random lesser known characters. And he played the character of, I think, was it Kraglin? I think that's the character's name in Guardians of the Galaxy. He is playing Maxwell Lord in Superman Legacy, presumably, because they know he's going to be Maxwell Lord for the DCU, but they don't know where it's appearing. Either way, it's going to probably be Superman. But there was a big, I guess, a big along the internet about why this was such an annoying thing, why people were like, oh my God, he's done it again. But with the announcement, I guess they kind of romanticize who Max Lord is in the comics. In the comics, he was kind of a no-name, lesser-known character for a very long time and wasn't made truly popular and notorious until he was killed by Wonder Woman. And that was when he became a bad guy. But the character himself, I mean, aside from the mind control, telepathy, the cyborg stuff, all that later stuff, Max Lord was a member of the Justice League International as manager. He was he was kind of a sleazeball, kind of borderline con man, but he was kind of just this PR guy. He wasn't meant to be anything beyond that. And then he became a bad guy at some point, and eventually character from. But a lot of people are. This is going to be the same take that we got with Wonder Woman 84, where Pedro Pascal played Maxwell Lord, and it couldn't be further from that. So Sean Gunn playing this kind of a lesser known character isn't a big deal to me, because he is very much a lesser known character. It wasn't until Identity Crisis and Infinite Crisis in 2005 where he became a supervillain / giant asshole.
Do you think that he'll be the PR agent for the that bad team, that heroes that don't care how things, and he has to kind of spin it to make it look like it's not as bad as what they were doing?
I would think that would make on the character. I would like that, but I actually think he'd probably be more aligned with the JSA type characters that we have, like Mr. Terrific, Green Lantern, Hot Girl, like those characters. I think he's going to be aligned with them and not because they're essentially the members of the Justice League International, just not the Justice League International. I could see them very much being like the Justice Society, and he's the PR guy, manager of that group. So I don't expect too much there. What he did, what James Gunn also did say after this casting was, what single protagonist movie doesn't have more than 10 speaking roles? There will be more. He said that, and then someone responded right off the bat, I think what you're saying is, please, no more superhero cameos setting up the new DC. And he said, none of these roles are cameos. So that does change a lot in terms of what people are expecting all these characters to be, because all these characters, there was a big rumor that a lot of them were just going to be these quick blink and you miss it kind of a cameos, like, oh, here's an invasion of all these characters, here's a bunch of kind of like a montage orgy of superhero fighting, and then it cuts away. Where now you get into kind of the territory as if it's a cameo or if it's a decreased role. Like, for instance, Batman in the Suicide Squad was what? I mean, his role wasn't a cameo because he had 3 or 4 scenes in the movie and multiple speaking roles. So which is it? I mean, is it more along the Batman side of things, where it's like, okay, he's there, but he's not the main character. He's not even a secondary, tertiary, or any of that character, but he's more than a cameo, but less than a main role. Or is it going to be like, is Green Lantern going to have 10 minutes of monologues? And that's what people are now questioning.
I don't think
where is it going to be? Is it,
yeah,
if it's not a cameo, is it?
I don't think it's going to be 10 minutes of monologues, but seeing that all the characters that are being set up are going to be that version of a character in something else, whether it be their voice. I wonder if we see any scenes. You know, Marvel sometimes will do things where we'll see a scene like that end of Eternals, right, where Black Knight is becoming a thing, and then supposedly, you know, camera pans over and that's the beginning of the next thing. So I wonder if we'll see some things like that, where we might see the beginning of a scene, you know, the lanterns are in a spaceship and then it flips off, or the lanterns call Superman and have a conversation, TV monitor turns off, and then they continue that conversation. I mean, there's so much world building happening. It's not a cameo if the character literally continues on the next scene over. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I think all of those things are fun, and I'm excited for him to fill out this world the way that he's going to.
Exactly. And I think what he's doing is not so much as just filling a bunch of lesser known cameos, but I mean, exactly what you said. I mean, what constitutes as a cameo? And that's like, you could argue that Commissioner Gordon's role in Zack Snyder's Justice League was kind of an extended cameo, 2 scenes, and then once those scenes were over, that was it. But then you have Batman in the Suicide Squad, where he's got 3 scenes, and they're maybe a culmination of like 5-6 minutes of actual footage. But when I think of a cameo, I think of like a true cameo, as in like you said, where at the end of the movie, Harry Styles shows up for half a second, and that's a cameo. But Black Knight, he was a lesser known character that is to set up something else. So I think it's somewhere in the mix of where Batman was in Suicide Squad and where Black Knight was in the Eternals, and I think that's where a lot of these roles are going to fit. I don't for a second think they're not going to be competing screen times or anything like that. Superman is Superman, and he's the main character. And you've also obviously Lois Lane that are going to be front and center for me. So I don't think. But then we kind of get into the other issue over this weekend where Zachary Levi had an interview with comicbook.com and kind of threw some shade at everybody. And
yeah, he's mad that he decided to play a Shazam that didn't resonate with an audience and now hasn't been asked to come back and is probably too old for the role now. Sorry, bro, you missed out. You can go look to be another superhero down the line. It was weird. I didn't understand where this was coming from because it's like, why would you shit on the guy that's going to hire you to be in this world again?
Yeah. I unfortunately found it very unprofessional and kind of very myopic in your view. Because, I mean, as the interview goes on, they ask him about if he's going to be playing a new character. And he kind of questions, like, what do you mean a new character? And then the host explains how essentially Jason Momoa is probably going to now become the new Lobo, and how Sean Gunn is going to just play this lesser known character. And he immediately jumps into saying, yeah, Sean Gunn was in the Suicide Squad, and those are more like these little cameo roles. Listen, when you're the brother of the guy who runs DC, I guess you can play whoever you want. And he threw this shade, and it's kind of Sean Gunn is not playing anyone big. He never has. He's got dozens of these little cameos throughout everything, but I don't for a second see a Weasel project happening. I don't for a second seeing, I mean, people even forgot he played Calendar Man for all of 2 seconds, right? Kraglin is probably his biggest character. And even he is not even a main member of anything. Like he becomes the main member of the Guardians by movie 3, but maybe 10 minutes of screen time tops. Like he's not a big character. None of these are big characters.
And we're also shitting on the like character he plays in World, where so much of what he does is facilitates his brother making the movie. I mean, he walked around on set to be the Rocket Raccoon stand-in, correct? Like he was the sightline for people. So like the fact that like we're being like, oh, you shouldn't be this B character. That's fine.
Not even a B character. He's like a D character in every role he plays.
Right. And it's like, why would you not utilize him in that way? That's the part I don't understand. It's not like he fired you as Shazam to hire his brother as Shazam. You know what I mean? It's like, no. We're not telling those stories right now.
And that's kind of the weird thing. I mean, fact of the matter is, Shazam 1 and 2 were not major blockbusters. Number 1 made Man of Steel money, but it had a higher profit ratio because it was cheaperly made. Shazam 2, unfortunately, was the biggest bomb of this year. I mean, people even say that, Captain Marvel was the worst MCU's ever done. Captain Marvel still made more money than Shazam 2. And from the production cost to profit ratio, even Blue Beetle made more money than Shazam 2, which is terrible because Blue Beetle had zero marketing and effectively was a bomb. But because the movie was as cheap as it was, they actually turned a profit on it. They didn't turn a profit with Shazam 2. But you can kind of say that, okay, maybe Shazam 2 failed because of the Black Adam situation where Dwayne Johnson didn't want to include Shazam into that universe and kind of sabotage it all.
Shazam 2 is not an amazing movie. There are some fun stuff in it. There's some weird stuff in it. That has nothing to do with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. That has nothing to do with Black Adam. Even if it would have had that hype machine behind it, it would have just been a bigger letdown because the movie doesn't pay off any of that stuff. The movie contradicts its own lore that it set up in the first movie.
It really does. And that's what makes it so frustrating is that what kind of sequel was it? I mean, sequels are supposed to up the scale from one movie to the next. And it didn't feel like that. It felt like a sidestep where they just kind of continued the story and then in a lesser capacity.
The fact that they introduce the Shazam family, like if you wanted to do a traditional movie, the first movie should have one Shazam. And then the next movie should maybe have the girl Shazam. And then in the third movie, when we're stretching to find something else, then the whole family gets involved. I feel like they jumped the shark so fast with Shazam, unless you are going to do another equally as big world that maybe the Black Adam could have brought. Like, unless Shazam 2 was Black Adam versus the Shazams, that wasn't the movie that they were setting up. So why do you think that would make it better?
Right? It's just such a frustrating thing. Like, there's no way around it. That I honestly liked Shazam 2, but I didn't like it as much as Shazam 1. I thought the first one had this nice, creepy angle to it with the 7 deadly sins, and they made the movie a lot more fun. And Dr. Savannah was a way better villain than the other characters that we got in the second one. The Daughters of Atlas, I think is what they were. I don't know.
They were gods.
Characters that were literally made up.
Yeah, they were
fighting
made
up
gods.
Just for the movie. They're not even from the comic.
Perfect.
Yeah. So it's that they jumped right into, okay, now we have the Shazam family, and now the Shazam family's having issues.
The Shazam 2, when they fought bad Charlie's Angels, right? There was Lucy Liu, and then the old Charlie's Angel, and the really young Charlie's Angel, and like they don't get along anymore. Like, that was the movie.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it is what it is.
Do you think this takes Zach out? Do you think this takes Zachary Levi out of the running to do future projects? Like, do you think James Gunn puts his name like, on my shit list?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it definitely does, because throwing shade at a budding production headlines as he did is not the most professional way to go, especially when you're literally insulting the integrity of the director and co-owner / co-everything for DC. Like, he basically accused James Gunn of like severe nepotism, when the fact is that James Gunn, like literally every director in Hollywood who has more than one project under their belt, a lot of these people tend to work with people that they're used to and they know they can work with. I got annoyed when people started like throwing a ton of shade about the announcement, and I said flat out, like, Zack Snyder does this. I mean, for people who try to ignore it, Zack Snyder has put his son in almost every one of his films. And mind you, as they go on nowadays, they're lesser and lesser, but he was literally the young Leonidas in 300 and young Rorschach in Watchmen. Like, he was two big screened characters for both of these things. And then he just turned into cameos going forward because he's like a teenager now and has like responsibilities and stuff. But Zack Snyder had done this. Chris Nolan does this. Chris Nolan has this tendency of using 20 actors in every movie he makes, and they're always there. Martin Scorsese does this. Quentin Tarantino notoriously does this, right? And
Steven
Spielberg. And on the flip side, on the comment, yeah, exactly. And then the biggest flip of it all, literally made his own production company to keep all of his friends employed, and keeps them in every single one of his movies. His wife is in every single one of his movies. His daughter was the new main character of his most recent movie. So, but James does it, and then everyone's losing their mind saying, oh, how dare he? Hollywood exactly works that way. But for, again, does James Gunn ever cast his wife or main character? No, never does this. It's not a thing that he does. Like, he cast initially as a cameo in the Suicide Squad, and then to a secondary supporting character for Peacemaker. And then all of a sudden, she was used a lot more in the other projects. Like she was in Black Adam for some reason as like the warden, and then she was in Shazam 2 as the recruiter for JSA.
Right. One of the things that I dislike is that when people say these things, it's like, did you not watch the show? She was great in Peacemaker. Like, she to me justifies that role totally fine. So is the problem that they're taking away from the project, or like you see Kraglin and you're like, oh, well, that's the other guy? I don't think that's what people think. And as long as they can execute on the day while there's millions of dollars being spent. Millions of dollars are being spent for us to be here and shoot this movie. Wouldn't you want to have people that are reliable and people that you can trust to help execute that vision? So I don't see it that way.
Exactly. And Sean Gunn is not this. He's not in the running for Batman. He's not in the running for Superman. He's not in any of the A-level characters. He's playing a C-level character in DC
now,
and then doing mocap for a bunch of other stuff.
Speaking of voiceovers, did you see Owen Wilson as Batman on
because the Batman cartoon on Amazon?
Yeah, where he's the Bat Dad. He does a great job. Now, does this mean that Owen Wilson's now going to be Batman moving forward? No, that's not what it means.
Was it Owen Wilson or was it Luke Wilson? I thought it was Luke Wilson. I thought it was his brother.
It's Owen Wilson.
I don't know. Let's find it. Amazon Christmas Batman.
It's really fun. It's a real fun. It's got a fun art style. I enjoyed it till I fell asleep.
Ironically, I see when it was Luke. It was Luke Wilson. It wasn't Owen Wilson. It was the brother. But still. But James Cromwell was Alfred Pennyworth. That's kind of amazing in itself. But so I saw parts of the project, and it was. But at the same time, I can see why David Zaslav wanted to kill this project because of essentially brand damage. He said that projects like these don't serve the greater purpose, and they make fun of their own properties. And that movie, yes, it's for little kids, but it's also highly satiric. Like it's hard to watch that movie and be like, yeah, this is a good Batman movie. It was like, this is ridiculous. This is a parody of Batman. So it's just one of those things. I see it and I'm like, all right, I see what they're doing, but okay. Everyone's super old now. Batman has now got a beard, and apparently Gotham's been safe for a long time because Batman locked everybody up, and he's got a kid.
He wanted to be a dad. You gotta watch it. Listen, I like that it makes fun of it and brings in, a fun element of Batman's character. I don't think it hurts the brand at all. I don't think people aren't going to go see the next Matt Reeves Batman because they're like, oh, I saw the Amazon cartoon. It's not for me anymore. Like, it's not for you in the first place.
Exactly. So I don't know. I can see both sides of it. I definitely think that people are being way too critical of it. But at the same time, I like to comment again on the fact that the fans seem to be in this latest stage of what we're going to outrage over next. Because obviously these are the same fans who hated the Shazam movies, and now they're saying, "Oh, Zachary Levi's got it right. James Gunn is stupid. Nepotism, yay!" Like they're rallying behind someone they hated last week. And then most recently, yesterday I think it was, there was a blip on the servers for HBO Max, and a small handful of content dropped off of HBO Max for like an hour while they fixed the servers, and immediately Watchmen was caught up by people like, oh, the Watchmen of HBO Max. How dare Zaslav try to destroy Watchmen and blah, blah, blah. And then as soon as it came back, now they're saying, oh, it's just them trying to save face. We called them on it. They're putting it back, blah, blah, blah. This faux outrage that exists when anytime anything happens, I like to point out that none of these fans had watched Watchmen since it debuted, and the entire time it debuted, they were bitching that it wasn't good enough compared to Zach's Watchmen movie. Like, people are now just looking for something to be mad about, and they're grasping at the lowest hanging fruit possible. They're justifying circumstance and ignoring facts, and their tinfoil hats couldn't be.
Do you think that
Do
you think it's because it's so easy to slam dunk on what shitty movies Marvel is doing right now? Like, it's so easy to fire shots one direction and hit a bullseye every time that when talking about the DC stuff, it's like, well, you already won. Zack Snyder's DC world is dead. It's never going to happen. The money is not going to be there for a very long time. If he comes back, he wants to do a one-for-one remake of a comic book, which he's very successful at doing. He's very successful by following that method. So I just don't understand, like, what's the goal here? Like, do you want to ruin Superman before it even gets airborne? Because if you kill little baby Kal-El now, it'll never happen. And the fact that, that they even have a 2025 release date is amazing to me. You know what I mean? Because it just shows how far things got messed up by the writer's strike.
Yeah, and with this, today there was an interview that came out from Cultura Asia. It's an international news outlet who asked Zach if he would continue to do his Justice League stuff if Netflix had the rights. It has been misquoted dozens of times because people don't pay attention to the quote. So listen to the wording on this when I read it to you, and tell me if you for a second advocating that Netflix buy the rights. Here's the exact quote, word for word. If Netflix had owned the rights to DC characters in my extended universe, of course I would absolutely return.
Right.
Make you think that Netflix is buying the rights? Because apparently everyone on Twitter now thinks that Netflix is doing it.
He just said, if 4 ifs happen, then maybe. And he's a guy that doesn't turn away money. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that if a project can come together and it makes sense for him to be there, he will. But he is not trying to move heaven and earth for these things. He has other projects that he would like to get made.
And he definitely answered it if pigs could fly, yes, I would be flying with them. Like, that's how he pretty much phrased it, because Netflix cannot and will not ever spend $500 million to license out these characters just to finish 2 films for Zach. Like, there's no financial gaining for them to do this. And last week, the same outrage happened when one of the Netflix executives said that they want to invest more in the Snyderverse. But in that same interview, they said that the Snyderverse is Zach's original projects, not DC's Snyderverse, but the Rebel Moon stuff and the Army of the Dead stuff. Yes.
Why
they 100% want to keep going with that Snyder?
Why do we like the term Snyderverse so much? Like, there's got to be another, like, the Dark Universe. Like, let's just call it something else. Like, right. I don't know. I mean, I think that's the problem. You can't just be like, oh, I want to bring the Tim Burton world to life. And it's like, wait, what do you mean? What Tim Burton world are we talking about?
And that's the thing, is that news outlets and interviewees and everyone like that, they're literally using this phrasing as a way to get free press. It's just manipulation, marketing 101. If I call Zack Snyder Rebel Moonverse the Snyderverse, will naively share all of this information and we get free press out of
it. How much has Netflix spent on Rebel Moon?
$160 million for both parts.
Okay. They have enough money into Zack Snyder right now. They would probably need to spend double that just to make another DC version, to make even any part of that. And again, no physical media, no DVD sales on the back end, no premiere dates in a movie theater. There's no money for these things.
They would have to spend double that just to get the licensing from Amazon, from Warner Brothers to do this. And then they would have to spend double that to finish it. So they were looking at almost $1 billion of fees and production costs, with almost zero return on it. No, they're not doing it. That's insane. They would never do that because it makes no financial sense. They would be committing massive suicide on a business level to make this happen. And then you have to even look at it that would Warner Brothers even say yes? Like why would they greenlight a competing universe while they're trying to start their new universe?
Yeah.
They're not gonna do it.
Yeah. No way would that happen. So where does that leave us then in the James Gunn verse, in the Gunn universe? Where does that leave us then in terms of Superman? Does this mean Superman can start filming tomorrow?
It's supposed to start filming in about 6 weeks.
So they obviously then know
February, March-ish.
Right. Okay. So they have costumes, they have their players, they know their story and stuff like that. With that release date, do you think that gives, I mean, I guess we wait to see how long this takes for him to film before another project starts?
I think so some of the big news that also came out was that a small cameo in this movie as well. I don't think it to be this giant role, but something just to acknowledge that Supergirl exists here, and then to justify it happening. I expect, since they already have a writer for Supergirl, if they hire a director in the next 6 weeks, they cast the actress, they put her in the movie. I could easily see that at the end, maybe this time next year, they're filming Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. But with that, all of the DC HBO projects like Green Lantern, all of that stuff, they've already got their showrunners, apparently. They've already got a lot of that stuff ready to go. So I could easily see the second half of 2024 being, let's produce our TV content right now. And Lanterns and the Amazon Paradise Lost and all those other projects will start moving forward instantly. Because right now, the only movies we have 2024 for DC is Joker.
And again, even though that's under that umbrella, that doesn't advance Gunn's universe at all. That movie is going to, that movie already has a built-in audience from its first movie. That movie will do good, but that has nothing to do with it being part of superhero world. You know what I mean?
No, it's just going to help them raise more finances to make more projects, because the first one, they spent $90 million on it and they made $1 billion off it. That's a lot of cheddar, and that's a lot of projects they can make with that. So,
what was the budget for the second one?
I think it was like 120. Not much more.
Not much more.
But it's honestly laughable, and horrifically ironic that these same fans that are constantly bitching about the James Gunn universe are actively trying to kill the universe before it begins, because they think somehow that if Warner Brothers fails, Warner Brothers will sell the content to someone else, or Universal will come in and buy Warner Brothers from Discovery, or any one of these ridiculous notions. But mergers and boycotts and purchases, they don't turn into what they want, right? You didn't see buying the X-Men. Disney buying Fox did not mean that we got better X-Men films. In fact, we haven't had a single damn X-Men film in years.
It means we get zero X-Men movie. It's so funny. Yeah. We used to be able to compare what Fox was doing to what Disney was doing to what Sony was doing. We don't even get to do any of that anymore.
Yeah. And if Universal buys Warner Brothers, does not mean that the Snyderverse is getting restored. That means it's not getting restored. Even more, like Warner Brothers failing, all of a sudden it's like the nail in the coffin for everything. Whatever exists currently is dead. Whatever exists before is also dead. Like, that's not how, you don't boycott something and expect to get your outcome. That's the same Star Wars The Last Jedi logic that fans clearly lost sight of.
But Warner Brothers already failed. They already got bought by Discovery. That merger has already happened. And this is the path that they're going to go on. Now the question is Disney hurting enough Is someone going to buy Disney, or would Disney sell off Marvel?
Yeah. Disney's not going to sell off Marvel, but yes, they are hurting a lot. They're in like I think the $100 billion decline in their market right now. Like their stock dropped, their productions are just failing at the box office. They're losing a ton of money. And honestly, I could see Apple finish the job and buy them in the next few years.
Can we even allow? I mean, like, not as you and me as human beings. I
What's
mean, but like,
happen,
can you allow a
what's going to happen
like that? Because now they physically own space in the world. Like, not only like an office building, but like chunks of Florida and chunks of California.
So what would happen is obviously the FTC would like say, no, you're not doing this.
Would
Disney
they?
would have to start selling off things. No, they would. Because they had major concessions to even get the Fox merger to happen. What would probably happen is that they would have to sell off pieces. Things would be like, if you want to keep Lucasfilm and Marvel, you have to sell 20th Century Fox. You have to sell Buena Vista TV. You have to sell this. They would have them cut so much out of it that Disney would buy it. Apple would buy Disney and would sell Fox out from under them and would sell FX, would sell all of these subsidiaries that Disney just bought just so they could get the Disney brand. And for people who don't realize the history, Apple has been, this is almost like a long con at this point, like a 20, 30 year hostile takeover from Apple that has been existing since the Pixar days, because people don't remember that Pixar was actually founded by Apple. And then when Disney was in a slump, Pixar bought Disney and then replaced all of their higher ups with members of Pixar. And now we have pretty much what Pixar started as, which was ex-Apple employees. And now Apple's coming to finish the job. So it's like, I don't even know anymore, man. But no, the FTC would not approve a merger. They would have to sell off parts of the company before they could do the purchase.
I mean,
Marvel would stay intact, Lucasfilm would stay intact, but they would either be sold at a huge chunk, like Lucasfilm could be sold to someone else as a whole. Disney would keep Marvel, and they would sell FX, they would sell Fox, they would sell 20th Century Pictures, whatever it is. But no, they would not be able to buy the entire thing.
I mean, it's an interesting spot. I feel like movies this last year, and I think what content is and what it's becoming, I don't think is known yet, and I don't think anyone has the finger on that pulse. You know, for every Barbie, Barbie Oppenheimer Barbie that comes around, I mean, that was one thing. That was two movies that people talked about, but the rest of the year was kind of a sleeper.
Yeah, it really was. And speaking of sleepers, Michael, go watch Godzilla -1.
Well, technically, but I mean, my doctor said I shouldn't infect people with COVID, so I need to wait a little bit longer. But yes, I would like to see that. I also want to go see the new Miyazaki movie, both of which were Japanese productions that I really want to see.
Yeah. And what's so super interesting about it is that there was a rant on social media the other day from a comic book owner who basically said that the modern day films, modern day comics, modern day superhero, everything, why it's declining and why anime and Japanese cinema is spiraling. And he basically kind of attributed it to like the age old, it's gone too woke and people don't care for it anymore. But he also pointed out the obvious, right? Anime exists as a single creation from a single creator and a single vision, right? You don't see constant reboots and retellings of those same characters, because anytime you see a reboot of an anime, it's by the same person who made it the first time, and they're just doing it again.
With anime, it just never ends. They're just making One Piece cartoons, or even Dragon Ball. We always say Dragon Ball Z, but Dragon Ball just never went away. Just do another series.
Yeah.
Keep them going. Here's a new story. Here's a new art style.
And argument he was saying was that in modern day comics, people, as well as movies and TV, people don't care anymore about these characters because these writers are putting too much of themselves into the writing and too much of agendas and things like that. And they're not only betraying the characters, but the fan bases who actually likes these characters are getting annoyed and just moving on. While in anime and manga, you don't see characters like Deku or National Stampede or things like that pushing some new political agenda because the character was written to be not that, and the writer will continue to make the character true to the character. So the argument is that modern day comics are failing because the comic companies have true to their own characters. And that's why you can argue that this is why companies now are just falling apart, because Disney makes reboots upon reboots. When we've talked about this before, the reboot of Little Mermaid failed not because it was woke or whatever, but because it wasn't really true to the source material. It wasn't true to the character. It was so much of a reboot that it just didn't feel like Ariel and the Little Mermaid anymore, and it got boring.
Yeah.
And the same argument's happening with the new Snow White movie. And say that, yes, they're pushing agendas, and they really were. I mean, they try to modernize Ariel. They try to add all this feminist stuff. They took out some of the bad guys' music to make it fit a certain way. But at the same time, when you're pandering to people like that, you're no longer pandering to the general audience. You're pandering to a select few that typically don't see the movie anyways.
Well, one of the things I found interesting was, like, now that Disney is aware of this problem, we're talking about their pandering. South Park made fun of it in the Pandaverse, right? Like, this is like a known thing.
Yeah.
How long do you think it takes?
Make it a girl and make her gay. Yeah, that was a great episode.
How long do you think it takes to right the ship? Because there's probably Snow White. There's like 3 more projects that are already filming and are already in the can that are not going to right the ship anytime soon.
I mean, look at it this way. When DC to right the ship of the DC stuff, when they literally said, we're going to fix DC, we're going to reboot it, and said it yourself, they already had 4 or 5 projects already made, and they had to release them. And now people are thinking that DC's failing because Warner Brothers Discovery put out 4 crap movies. But no, those were the movies of the last regime. Those were the stuff that was already out, and they just had to do it. So even if Disney says today, we're going to fix our issues, but what is that? That means that what, in 5 years, everything's going to be correct? Because all the stuff they're working on currently, it still has to come out, or they're going to do a massive PR fiasco and cancel the films and then watch the internet implode.
It makes me so worried about the Rey movie. Where does the Rey movie fall into this? Do they give Rey to people that just want to tell a good Star Wars story? Or is Rey going to be the avatar for girl bosses? Which I feel like when I think about the original Disney princesses and things like that, and those movies, they are characters that, regardless of how the world is, show how bright they shine because of who they are. And I feel like that's been lost. I feel like we want to see our characters excel and be great for whom they are, so we can celebrate that, instead of just assuming, oh, well, they're going to be good at this thing because of X, Y, and Z. I'm real worried about what they're going to do to Rey. I really like Rey as a character. I'd really like them to redeem her from the last couple of Star Wars movies.
Which, ironically, and I know that we have we've always had different opinions on everything that we watch. I mean, I actually watched the new Indiana Jones movie, and before you say anything, I actually liked it. So I know you hated it, but I liked it.
I'm glad you watched. I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad that you were. Someone, I think the Red Letter Media guy said the first half of Crystal Skull is better than the second half. I think that the second half of this movie is better than the first half of this movie.
Oh, like 100%. The second half was really good. The first half was very slow, but at the same time, both halves are still better than Crystal Skull. So I was
See,
like, all right.
I think if you could meld those two worlds together, which they kind of tried to do, I dislike when movies feel like video games. I dislike when movies feel like video games. My problem with the Last Jedi, what's the one where Palpatine comes back?
Rise of Skywalker.
Thank you. There are too many video game missions where you're just telling what we're going to do and then we go do it. There was too much in this last Indiana Jones movie that felt like a video game. And guess what? That's not how you make video games, because good video games don't feel like a video game. The Last of Us TV show doesn't feel like a video game. It feels like an HBO TV show. So I just dislike that lazy narrative. There's stuff that I like. I want to like the new Indiana Jones, but you're right. That first half is such a slog. And then we get bogged down in the middle. I just think they forgot like what we want. We want to spend time with Indiana Jones. Like, it's not always, I don't know. Like the tut-tut race scene, we didn't need any of that nonsense. Just get him on the plane and get him to the next destination.
Yeah. But there was a lot of stuff that I did enjoy. I did like the justification. I liked the end. I liked the end a lot with Marion showing back up and kind of like you realizing that it wasn't so much Marion that left him as that he left Marion because he had such a hard time dealing with Mutt's death.
My problem
that was really nice.
My problem with the end is that they should have killed Indiana Jones. And they should have, I wanted them to do a Back to the Future 2. When Indiana Jones is like, oh no, he's hurt. What's going to happen? They're showing all these rocks and cave and water everywhere. Great. Send somebody back in time to go up there. Let's play with this moment that we're scared of happening. And then you just got to write to Indiana Jones being an 80-year-old man. You can't have Grandpa Joe Biden running around the world, getting in fist fights, jumping off of stuff. It's like, that's not, he can't do that. He's 86 years old, everybody.
We went on a little bit of a tangent there. What were we talking about before?
Listen, it's not a
tangent. We went on such a big tangent.
Listen, even though it feels like a tangent, it's not. This is another huge project that Disney thought was going to be a slam dunk, and it wasn't. And we have this, we're in a space right now where fandom is angry at what is being presented to them. And I think because of like the shitty food that we're being given, all this McDonald's that people are eating, it's making them prejudge, the DC reboot. I mean, I think people should be excited that we're going to get something new and wipe away the cobwebs and get new stories, new blood, fresh ideas.
And that's what we're getting. And it's going to be it's like I've said before, I am not a shill for James Gunn. I'm not defending James Gunn. Like, drink the James Gunn Kool-Aid. I have said it before that I have a loyalty to these characters, and if the characters are done correctly, I will show up. To prejudge before the cameras has even started rolling is insanity. Like, everything on paper sounds great. So why not let's just slow a roll a little bit and just see what happens, because we're judging way too soon. And a lot of people are judging from a state of emotional frustration for how DC had been handled before. But you're blaming people who had no hand in what happened before. So let's just see what happens.
Well, and then do you like what he did? I mean, it's so weird because, like, at what point does James Gunn get removed from the stuff? Like, did you like Guardians 1? Like, which Guardians is his movie, right? Guardians 3 clearly ended in a spot that he was happy with, but they weren't really his characters anymore. You know what I mean? Like, at what point do these things get taken away? And the singularity of what you just said was, with anime and Japanese films, it's one creator showing their ideas and having characters be true to life. And I think James Gunn can do that. I think he can absolutely do that with his DC projects. And if that's the case, then that's a much brighter tomorrow.
I agree. And I'm really hoping that when the product does release, fans will stop complaining and start, hey, it's now in a good spot. Let's be excited when the future comes. Because if he sticks the landing with Superman Legacy, and if the casting for Batman, the casting for Supergirl wows people, then there's a decent shot this will be the best version of DC that could have ever existed on film. And not only that, like every complaint that we've had about Marvel for the last 10 years is not going to happen here, because James clearly learned from their mistakes. He made Guardians of the Galaxy 3 as essentially the anti-MCU movie. And
it's so funny, Taylor,
honestly,
because I think you're right. The pendulum swung the wrong way. Everyone felt like we got to make these superhero movies for little kids, the widest possible one. And it's like, I think we need to do what James Gunn is doing. I think these movies need to be PG-13 to R, and that needs to be where the audience is.
Let the movies be taken seriously again. We don't need a Disney princess musical number in the middle of our Marvel movies. We need more Rocket standing over the corpses of his friends crying because of what just happened. Like, we need more serious, heartfelt moments that actually get people.
The subplot of Guardians 3 is animal torture. It's a very difficult movie to watch, okay? You as an audience have to ask yourself really tough questions. None of that's happening in choose any one of the Marvel projects you want to shit on right now. You know what I mean? That's not happening. And funny enough, one of the projects that I liked, Doctor Strange 2, I just couldn't believe that it had been so long for Doctor Strange. He's so saturated in so many other things. By the time it came around to Doctor Strange 2, it's like, what else do we got to talk about? He's living a full life over here.
Yeah.
Okay. Listen, Zach Levi out. Let's get a new Shazam. Let's slam dunk on him as well.
I'll say it again, because a lot of people think that my fan casting choice for a new Shazam is Jack Reacher himself, Alan Rickman.
Taylor, me and the wife both watched season 1 of Reacher 2 days ago.
Good, right?
It's fucking great. He's so good. That character, like literally the Jack Reacher, I cannot tell a lie. Like, if you were to have that be a little kid inside of that, that's hilarious. He's so good.
The reason why I say that I want him to be one episode of New Girl where he was the street artist with the micro penis. Watch that episode and watch Alan do the most ridiculous humor. And yes, imagine now him a 12-year-old kid. Like, I'm sold. That is my only fan casting. The only time I jump into fan casting is I will say that like Alan should be the new Shazam, because it would be so damn fun.
He looks great, and it would great to have Shazam be physically hulking and scary, even though we know, wink, wink, he's not really that scary. He's actually a little kid inside of there. Where Zach Levi, I understand why you casted him. You needed somebody with comedy chops, but there are different ways to play the Shazam man, right? And they chose to go one way. I would love to see it go a different way.
Yeah. I think that if you cast known for serious roles and cast someone that you don't think can handle comedy and have really good writing, you can pull it off. I never thought Channing Tatum would be in anything, but 21 Jump Street is probably one of my favorite comedies, because Channing Tatum is ridiculously funny in those movies. If you do it right, if you cast the right person, you can get some really funny stuff out of them. You just got to accept that it's You got to subvert the expectations a little bit. So stop hiring comedians for these roles that you expect. Don't hire the obvious people.
If I'm gonna fan cast, if Taylor's gonna give great stuff like that, let's get Michael Fassbender as the Green Martian.
That'd be cool.
I guess he's coming back as Magneto, right? We're gonna see that we're gonna see the Magnetos hang out. He's not coming. You don't think we'll see a scene where the two Magnetos are pointing at each other like, "You're Magneto, what? You're Magneto, what? You did it." You don't think we'll get a Spider-Man with Magnetos?
They don't have enough screen time to pull off all of those kind of things. I think we're gonna get Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart again, and that's it.
Well, Taylor, if that's what you want to talk about, that's new news, and that's a whole new episode in itself. So let's put a nice, beautiful bow and read this episode a good night story and give it a kiss on the cheek. If you'd like to give us a kiss on the cheek, head over to our patreon.com/theculturednerd. We very much appreciate all of our patrons. Thank you for keeping the lights on here. Thank you for keeping Taylor's shoddy technology at best working and up to full speed. Your host has been Taylor Murphy. Your co-host has been me, Michael Santel. Our logo has been by Jose Navarro, and our intros by Taylor Murphy and Jay Stu. If you have those cell phones, like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell. That way you'll be up to speed whenever we're coming out with brand new content. Lots of really cool stuff in the works for 2024, but that is new news, and we're finishing up old news. Thank you so much for joining us. Chat, thank you for joining us. Thanks for joining us here live in the real world. I see you, Marvel Man. I see you, Other Michael. I see you, Always Never. Thank you for being here with us. And we'll be back very soon to talk about the end of the year predictions.
Yeah. Well, it has been the end of the year predictions. We have an interview for next week, and then we got a Rebel Moon episode that we're taking a break for a few weeks. So we'll do the end of the year predictions with the Rebel Moon watching of next week.
Okay. Because I would like
kiss on the cheek.
What do you mean? You give it a little kiss on the cheek?
Patreon sound smutty.
No. It's a big.
It's a Patreon. It's not an OnlyFans, Michael. Come on.
Yeah, it's a big grandma. Mwah, mwah. It's 2 kisses. It's 2 big kisses on the cheek. I would do it to anybody. I kiss you on the cheeks. Anyway, love all of you. See you soon. We'll see all you kids and cats next time.
All right. Bye.